así que imagino que se irán sumando en el transcurso de los próximos minutos. Bueno, buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias por estar acá en otra de nuestras charlas de sábados para conectar. Voy a hacer una breve introducción en español y después ya me paso al inglés. Me llamo Alan, trabajo con líderes empresarios, con líderes sindicales, con líderes políticos, académicos, científicos, sociales. Y mi objetivo es ayudarlos a que estén bien en la vida. Convencido de que si están bien, van a hacer mucho bienestar a mucha gente con la que trabajan, y con la que conviven, y con la que comparten. Este es nuestro quinto o sexto encuentro de Sábados para Conectar, y ahora me voy a pasar al inglés. So, first of all, welcome everybody. My name is Alan, and I'm working with business, social, political, union, and scientific and different kinds of leaders from Argentina and the region in order to help them to be well, and believing that well-being will be then spill over to many, many people. This is our fifth, I guess, Saturday for Connect session, and it's a great honor for me to have today with me my good friend, Christopher Willard. He will talk today about mindful resilience in the COVID quarantine. And let me share you a little bit about Chris. 1 second, I have his bio here. So Chris is psychologist and consultant specializing in mindfulness and resilience, the two topics he will talk today about. He has led hundreds of workshops around the world with invitation to more than 24 countries. He has presented at TEDx conference, and his thought have appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Mindful.org, and elsewhere. He's the author over a dozen books available in more than 10 languages and teach at the Harvard Medical School. I was with Chris, I guess 3 years ago. 3 years ago he was here, and we organized a gathering with all those leaders that I work with, and it was an amazing experience. So we were planning for late this year to have him again here, but with this situation, we don't know. So we decided to open this gathering to all of you, and I'm very pleased to have you. I want to thank Linin Argentina for supporting this event, and also think tanks. So thank you, Sergio, and thank you, Dolores, for promoting this gathering. And having said that, I pass you to Chris. And once again, Chris, many, many thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Gracias, Alan. Gracias a todos. Hablo un poquito de español, pero voy a hablar en inglés hoy. Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you all for being here. And this is such an amazing time to be connecting, around these topics of leadership. And I usually travel so much for work, and now I'm not traveling at all in person. But it's still been fun to connect with friends all over the world, and to be here with folks in Argentina. I usually get down to Argentina about once a year, and Buenos Aires is one of my favorite cities in the world. Argentina is one of my just absolute favorite countries to visit. I just love the people, so I can't wait to come back. I'm supposed to be back the first week in December, assuming the flights are happening again, but of course, we'll see. So I'm excited today to just share a little bit about some of the thoughts I've been sharing with different organizations since this all started in terms of building more resilience. So I've been working with places like Google and HubSpot and other big companies, as well as with educational institutions and universities and hospitals, to think about how can we be more resilient through this time. And one thing that's particularly interesting to me is mindfulness, atención plena. And it's something that I teach in all different kinds of contexts, to be able to help us stay calm and clear-headed through these really challenging moments that we're facing. And we're really putting that to the test right now. And I'm also really seeing this work right now. Thought I'd start with just a brief mindfulness practice. If this may or may not be familiar to you, but I'll just invite everyone. We'll start by just sitting upright. You can allow your eyes to close if you like. Ring the bell. And first, just becoming aware of your body. Just allowing for a sense of uplift through the top of your body, as if you're sitting tall and upright like a mountain. And just seeing yourself as a mountain, strong, solid. Breathing in, I see myself like a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid, stable. Or maybe putting your attention, moving your attention to your breath. Feeling the up and down, the rise and fall of each breath in, each breath out. Almost like the waves of the ocean, breath moving in and up, back out and down. Just following your breath like waves of the ocean. Each one different than the one that came before, but the breath just keeps coming. And turning your attention lastly to your mind, like the sky, open, wide, huge. The sky. Clouds like thoughts, worries might drift through, but your mind is bigger, more accepting, always there behind any thoughts, any clouds. Just seeing your mind like the sky. And at any point in your busy or not so busy days, you can just come back to your sense of your body, strong, confident like a mountain, or your breath just flowing like waves in the ocean, or your mind open like the sky. Just bring your attention back outward, and I'm really finding that more than ever, mindfulness is so important for us to practice on our own, as well as for us to practice in moments like this, when we get together online, which I think we're all tired of getting together online, especially with such a warm culture and society like you have down there. Think about all the hugging and kissing I do whenever I'm down in Latin America. But we miss each other online. And we're also, what mindfulness helps us do is we're all coming from, some of us are coming from breakfast or from being with our kids or from working or from the gym. And when we come together in a meeting like this, our bodies are in a different place, our minds are in a different place, and we do a brief mindfulness practice. And suddenly we're all a bit more regulated in our minds, brains, and bodies. And so we're a bit more connected and able to communicate a lot more effectively. Our brains, in fact, are opening up, right, to be able to connect with each other in a way that's really been lacking for so many of us. And I want to turn now to thinking about a few different kind of aspects of mindfulness that I think are really important. I mentioned that I usually do a lot of travel for work. I'm always on airplanes, and none of us are on airplanes now. And I want to use a few different metaphors from airplanes. And one is when we get onto an airplane and they give us the instructions. They say, if the oxygen masks come down, put your own oxygen mask on first, and then to the people around you. So we really need to start with ourselves as leaders. And maybe that means a leader in our household as a parent. Maybe it's a leader in an organization, a corporation, educational institution, NGO, hospital, right? Wherever it is that we might be working. It starts with us. Our own ability to stay regulated and stay calm through the situation really is contagious to everybody else. It spreads from person to person to person. So that leaders in a business environment who practice mindfulness, their employees are happier and healthier than business leaders who do not. Parents who practice mindfulness, their kids are happier, the communication in the family is better. We're all living with just a few people, if we're living with anybody in a small group, and again, in our families, or if you're living with a wife or husband or partner or something like that, when one person in a couple is practicing mindfulness, the other person is actually happier and is feeling better about the relationship when that person is practicing meditation or mindfulness during that time. So it really spreads from person to person. And so when we're able to manage ourselves, that actually trickles out. And so the other airplane metaphor that I want to mention, I heard someone talk about when the airplane is flying and you suddenly go through turbulence, the airplane starts to shake, right? And everyone kind of looks around, right? And everyone responds differently. Some people just keep reading their book. Some people order a drink. Some people get very anxious, right? And then the captain gets on and says, ding, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some turbulence in the air right now, and we should be through it in about 20 minutes or so. We're gonna check in with air traffic control. We're gonna lower our altitude for a few hundred meters. We're gonna get through it to the other side, and we'll get you safely to your destination. And that's really what I think we want to do as leaders. Again, whether it's leaders in our work or leaders in our family or leaders in our community in different ways, is be that captain who's able to keep everybody calm during this really difficult situation. Now, the thing is, we don't know exactly when this is going to end. And part of what happens when we don't know when a situation is going to end, or we don't have any control over it, is we feel helpless. We feel out of control. And these things, and we feel stressed out with all this uncertainty. And what starts to happen is you see people then in their daily life, just like on the airplane, right? Maybe they get angry and frustrated. I want to get off this airplane, right? Or maybe they start drinking too much, or maybe they get really anxious and have a panic attack, right? Or maybe they just give up, right? But what we want to do is get through to the other side of this, again, with ourselves, with our families, with our communities, as safely as possible to the other side. And it starts with everyone feeling like they're in good hands. You can hear my kids in the background, I apologize. Feeling confident in the leadership in this situation. When that doesn't happen so much, what starts to happen is we end up, again, people start acting out in all kinds of crazy ways. And at the end of this, people end up with significant stress, and people end up with post-traumatic stress disorder, which is really not what we want to have at the end of this. Now, one of the interesting things that interests me, I do a lot of studying resilience, and people talk a lot about situations like post-traumatic stress. But what's also really interesting to me is post-traumatic growth. And in fact, post-traumatic growth is more likely to happen than post-traumatic stress in different situations. And it starts by basically just taking good care of ourselves in some really specific ways to do this. So it starts with thinking about, I call it or people call it the biopsychosocial model of resilience. Biology, taking care of our bodies in terms of our physical health, salud física, our mental health, and also thinking about our relationships, the kinds of people that we're spending time with. All of these start to make a really big difference, and all of these are things that we can bring a lot of mindfulness to over the course of this. So at its most basic, thinking about how do we mindfully care for our bodies. And that's things like eating regularly. And a lot of us, when we're anxious, we actually forget to eat. So remembering to eat, things like that. Getting some sleep, getting the sleep that we need, getting the exercise that we need, and regulating our bodies in other healthy ways. What happens when we're under stress is that we stop thinking clearly and our digestive system stops working. We get stomach aches. We start craving different foods. So we start eating unhealthy foods. People have probably noticed if you're, being chased by a wild animal, which is, what the stress response is built for, then you're probably, craving sugar and fat and salt, something that helps you run, to fight or flee from the situation. You're probably not craving healthy food. It's why we're craving unhealthy food right now. So finding ways that we can encourage ourselves to eat more healthfully and the people around us to eat more healthfully, that's going to be really important in terms of our physical health. The other things that we can do right now in terms of boosting our psychological immune system, again, by boosting our physical immune system. And so, probably a lot of us are suddenly learning how to cook and things like that. We can also teach other people how to cook. We can also cook for other people. And part of what this does also is that it helps us to feel like we're doing something. One of the reasons people develop post-traumatic stress is because they feel so helpless. The best way to not feel helpless is to be helpful. Maybe I can cook some food for my neighbor. Maybe I can call up a friend on Zoom and teach them how to cook something. Maybe I can bring groceries to a neighbor. Maybe I can support a local restaurant that I care about that's struggling by getting food to go from that restaurant. When we're helping other people, we feel less helpless. And so we're less likely to then develop post-traumatic stress or something like that on the other side. There are also ways, if anyone has an interest in mindfulness, and actually I have a copy of this list in Spanish, just ways of bringing more mindfulness to eating, basically. Like really eating when our bodies tell us to eat because we're hungry or something like that, rather than just eating because our emotions are telling us to eat, right? Really making sure we plan our meals, having a routine and ritual around food, rather than just kind of snacking, things like that. These kinds of things make a really significant difference. And then we get into a routine. The other thing that happens when we're feeling in a stressful situation like this is we feel a lack of control. That lack of control starts to lead to post-traumatic stress. We can't control when this is going to end. We don't, know what to predict in terms of what's going to happen. The experts keep being wrong, unfortunately. So we try to maybe have some control over what we can control. And maybe that is eating more healthfully. Maybe that is getting some degree of exercise when we can. And so we can bring, for example, a little bit more awareness to things like exercise, which is also a really important thing to do. Where I live, and I don't know quite how it is for folks down there in Argentina, but we're allowed to leave the house and go for a walk for a little bit every day. And whether you're stuck inside or whether you can go outside, getting about 20 minutes of exercise a day is going to be as good as taking medication for depression, for anxiety, or for attention issues. 20 minutes of light exercise. If you can get outside, then maybe it's also bringing a bit more mindfulness to being in the world, because I'm pretty much only taking a walk around the block and around my own neighborhood. I'm not getting to take beautiful walks different places like I used to. But each day I can notice what's beautiful on this walk. It's springtime here. I know it's fall. It's otoño there, right? But every day the buds and the flowers are appearing slowly on the trees, right? Every day is a little bit different. I can start to notice what's different every day with mindfulness. I can feel my feet on the ground, how it feels different after the rain than on a sunny day. I can notice the sensations of movement as I'm walking around. These are ways that I can just bring a bit more mindful awareness to exercise and walking, which is also going to really boost my mood, help me feel better. The other thing that I've been doing is trying to get a little bit of exercise while I'm also reaching out to other people. So getting up and walking while I'm on the phone, making the calls I need to make. So I'm getting exercise and I'm reaching out to other people, which is going to be really important as well. What's more, getting exercise is going to help me sleep at night and help me eat better. And all of that's going to help me, again, feel healthier in my body. Lastly, the other things that we can do for both our body and our brain is reset ourselves in terms of our physiological arousal in the body. When we're stressed, right, we often find ourselves, our breath becomes very shallow, right? Our muscles tense up, things like that. When this happens, right, when our breath gets unregulated, when it's not smooth and even, that actually means that my brain is not working as well as it should be working. When my breath is slow and even and regular, that means that my brain and my body are slow and moving in a regulated way. So what I often say, and I don't know if I have this slide in Spanish, I should translate it into Spanish, but you can regulate your breath, and that regulates your body, which regulates your whole nervous system and your brain, which means that you can then better regulate your emotions, your impulses and urges, cravings, as well as your attention better, because I think a lot of us are struggling to pay better attention right now. And so one thing I've heard is that you can use your breath almost like a remote control to turn off the alarm system in your brain and to activate the prefrontal cortex right behind all my hair because I need a haircut, to activate the insular cortex where we're able to take better perspective on a situation. And it's just by slowing our breath down a little bit to between about 4 and 6 breaths in a minute. This shuts off the brain's fight or flight system, the alarm system in the brain and body, and helps us to see more clearly, to think more clearly, and to communicate that much more effectively. So mindfulness is not just breathing, but doing some breath regulation practices can be very, very helpful. So a really simple one that I often suggest is, this one is just called the 7-11 breath. Breathing in for 7 and breathing back out to 11. So we can just do this together. Inhalando 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhalando 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Inhalando a 7. Exhalando a 11. Inhalando. Exhalando. Inhalando. Exhalando. And you can just allow your breath now just to find a new rhythm, perhaps just a bit more slowed down. And you might just notice also in your mind if you're feeling a bit more focused, a bit more relaxed, a bit more settled. And just trying to bring this in at a few different points in your busy day. Maybe before dinner, or maybe before bed, or maybe in the morning, or maybe before you sit down to work. Certainly at the beginning of a Zoom meeting. In fact, when we're interacting with a screen, the research finds our breath gets a little bit more shallow, so that we're not breathing as well when we're interacting with a laptop or with a phone or something like that. So we want to really take the time to extend, to deepen, to draw out, especially the exhale part of the breath. And that starts to shut the alarm system down in the brain, help us focus better and be more resilient through all of this. Even other, just changing our body posture, just putting your hands behind your head like this, which many of us do automatically. It's very hard to not breathe deeply when you do this. It's very hard to not slow down your breath when you do this. So it's another practice that I really recommend a lot too. And it's a very simple one to do that just relaxes our body, relaxes our breath a little bit. When it comes to our psychology, we talked about the physical, now talking a little bit about the mental. When we're stressed out, our perspective gets distorted. We start like taking more mental shortcuts. We don't actually see things as clearly. We interpret everything as negative. And part of what we need to do are practices that really help us focus a bit more on the positive. Our brains take in way more negative information. It stays in our brain much longer than positive information. And that's useful for our ancestors in terms of survival. But in the world today, we actually don't need that. It's not so helpful. But this is why you probably see yourself, if you start to feel stressed, you feel more and more negative about the whole situation with the world events. Or maybe you read some things online, or you see some friends that are really struggling and feeling very negative about everything. You actually want to shift the ratio to about 4 positive things for every 1 negative thing. So every time you read the news and you get really depressed, do 4 things that make you happy, right? Go pet your dog, look out the window and notice the blue sky, watch a funny video online, spend some time with someone who lifts up your mood in some way. Or practice gratitude. Just spending some time at the end of the day, focusing on just what went well during the day. Right now, as so many of us are home and also trying to work from home and maybe caring for our kids or caring for our parents or, feeling so stuck, we feel so busy all the time. And we feel like we're never doing enough or never doing it right. Learning how to cook suddenly, right? Things like that. But if we take a moment and focus on what went well, it actually starts to change, not pretending everything is good, but actually helps us see things more clearly. So let's invite you, again, just sit up straight if you like. Allow your eyes to close if you like. And I'll just invite you to bring to mind one thing from yesterday or so far today that's going well, that's happy, that's good. Maybe it's enjoying your coffee at breakfast, or maybe it's the sun is shining. Maybe it was a moment where you caught up with an old friend. Just bring to mind that one positive event. Imagine the scene in your mind. See it, feel it in your body. Notice thinking about who was there, what was the situation, and allow it to really sink in. And if you like, you can just allow yourself to smile at this happy, positive image. And I'll ring the bell again. And you can allow your eyes to open once more. And just noticing if there's been a bit of a shift in how you're feeling after doing this very brief visualization, bringing in the positive. Again, it's not pretending or pushing away the negative, it's just also bringing in the positive. So you can do this by making a list, or you can do this by taking a minute to focus on the positive. You can do it by talking to friends about the positive, or colleagues about what is going well rather than what's not going well, right? And if we take about a minute to focus on this or talk about it, it starts to stick in our brains, whereas a negative experience goes into our brains in an instant. And if you like, it's up to you in English or in Spanish. You can maybe even type in the chat bar, what was your positive thing that you're happy about? It doesn't really make a difference whether it's a long practice or a few different short practices a day. But I'll just put down hearing my kids playing outside in the warm weather is my little moment that I enjoy. So moving forward, also, and yeah, see, look at these, yeah, dancing, oh, so Argentine, right? Dancing, positive connection with our bodies, right? Hugs, nice long chat with a close friend, really great sincere conversation, right? We're having more of these. I feel like our families who we're stuck with, we're lucky if we're happy to be stuck with our family. I know I am. Went for a walk, right? Seeing the world outside, right? Having breakfast on video chat, right? We can do these things. They're actually really sweet, connecting with folks, right? Breeding for our happy dogs and cats, savoring our coffee for sure. Working on the garden. So many people are working on their gardens these days. Absolutely, playing cards. So other things that we can do, I think, in terms of our relationships also, we've talked about, that's sort of a mental practice along with mindfulness, physically taking care of ourselves through mindful movement or mindful eating, and then thinking about our relationships. We have a saying in English, if your mind is a dangerous neighborhood, si su mente es un barrio peligroso, no es seguro ir solo. Don't go there by yourself, right? Go with other happier, healthier people. So surround yourself with people that are more positive. Online, on Facebook, on Twitter, there's so much bad information, so many conspiracy theories, so many people that are so negative. I started just deliberately not following and unfollowing my friends who are being so negative or posting bad information or being unhelpful online on Facebook. And it makes such a difference. My Facebook is now a more happier place to go because I'm not seeing all this negativity. And maybe I'll bring them back in when things have settled down a little bit, but that really helps me. Reaching out to people when we're feeling down is really important, to old friends and stuff like that. But it's also really important to reach out to people when we're feeling good, when we're feeling up, because we never know who we're helping. And again, as I was saying before, when we feel helpless, one of the best ways to not feel helpless is to do something, is to be helpful. And that actually makes us feel more resilient and gets us through this to the other side. And we'll look back on this time feeling like we've done something good, right? And Alan and I were talking about this, right? It's like, you know, he's putting on these amazing seminars, you know, like not getting paid. I'm doing all these like things just like for free because it's helpful to people. And I feel good when I'm able to be helpful to people, right? And so like, that's actually, you know, the payment is that it's healthy for me. I'm being more resilient in the long run, right? Not just my work is being more resilient, you know, but my own brain and body are more resilient, and that's going to help my family, and that's going to help the other people around me. But by giving and being generous and kind and making offerings and helping other people, that makes me more resilient because I feel like I'm being helpful in a situation where I would otherwise feel so helpless because I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not, you know, so many of these other people that are on the front lines, or I'm not a, you know, like a doctor in that way, right? In an emergency room doctor, right? That's, you know, that the psychology, that's where I'm going to be most helpful to people during this time. So thinking about that also, and then also thinking about what are the ways that we can organize our life. My son's Legos are in the background here. Leo, you can come in and get your Lego. It's okay. We're all working with our families too. You know, the other things about, you know, post-traumatic stress and feeling, you know, ways that we can be helpful, right? You know, I heard someone say, this is the one time that you can be a superhero and save the world just by staying home and sitting on your couch, right? And so if we can be helpful to other people, can we get groceries and food for people? Can we teach our friends how to cook? Or can we teach our parents how to use Zoom so that they can connect with their friends? Can we make food for people? Can we listen to our friends or talk to our friends? Can we help a neighbor with their yard work outside, right? Can we sew masks for people if you're crafty? Can we volunteer our skills? And this is also especially true if you do have kids, which you can see I have kids, right? Kids actually, really resilient kids, when they grow up, if they've faced difficulties in their life, what they most remember from childhood, their favorite moments, are the ones where they were asked to be helpful, to be responsible. So, you know, maybe it's just like that they're making art and they're sending it off to their grandparents, or they're sending it to friends, or they're drawing in chalk on the sidewalk, right? These kinds of things are helpful. And then remembering to see and thank the people that are helping. We see this all over the world. We see this, right, in Italy, when the first responders and doctors and nurses are getting applause. And we see this in New York City, and I'm sure this is happening in Argentina, but everywhere, thanking the people who are on the front lines. This helps us to feel better. There's a very famous, in the US growing up, there was this childhood television host named Mr. Rogers, who was an American television host. And he would say, when I was a boy and I would see something scary in the news, my mother would say, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. So when we look for the helpers, or we become the helpers, we actually become more resilient. We feel more hopeful, which is also what we need, right? When we point this out to each other, when we point it out to our families, when we point it out to the other people in our communities, this also really helps too. The other way that we can make things feel for ourselves and the people around us, we all feel so out of control. The lack of control is part of what creates post-traumatic stress. Well, we can make things that are unpredictable a little bit more predictable. So I've been saying to people who are grown-ups, run your life like you're running a preschool, like a nursery school for really little kids, right? Create routines and rituals. And maybe for you, that's a very rigid structure of at 9 o'clock I do this, and 10 o'clock I do that, and 11 o'clock I do that. But actually better than that is just setting yourself some intentions for the day, right? So rather than like at 9 o'clock I do this, at 10 o'clock I do that, make your day a little bit more like the first thing I do is I get up and I take a shower and I get dressed. The next thing I do is I go get some exercise. Then I sit down and I enjoy my coffee. Then I do a little bit of work on the computer. Then I take some time off and I call a friend while I take a walk. So rather than every hour lined up, it's more just you do things in a general order. And then it's more predictable, which is also less tiring for our brains, don't get as tired. And it also helps us feel like there is something that's predictable. At least the day is predictable, even if the year isn't predictable, even if the month isn't predictable. And in turn, again, what that does is it helps us feel more safe, and certainly helps our companies, our communities, our families feel more safe and predictable. And they, again, we're all kind of calm and coming out the other side of this, more resilient and less likely to develop post-traumatic stress or something like that. And also thinking about other things that we can control, right? Not being a complete control freak, but maybe it is taking time to reorganize your basement because now you've got the time to do that. Maybe it is taking time to organize the cabinets or sort out old things in your house and get rid of them because that's something you can control. So doing things that you do have some control over in a situation that at the bigger level we can't control, that really helps. So these are just a few other kinds of things to think about. And I think also, you know, some other things that we can do are just to slow down a little bit if we can. You know, at the beginning of this, I felt like it was very easy to slow down. And now I'm actually gotten very busy with work and very busy with family and things like that. But I remember just one of the first days in March coming home and from the grocery store, and I was carrying all these groceries in my hands and from the car. And I you know, got halfway in the house and I was thinking, why am I trying to carry all these groceries at once? There's no rush. I can just slow down and make 3 trips to the car instead of trying to do this all in one trip. And so allowing yourself to slow down, if you can, slow down and enjoy your dinner. You do that in Argentina anyway, right? Slow down and enjoy the chopping of the vegetables. When you're walking, there's nowhere to go anyway, so enjoy the walking, enjoy the journey. Enjoy looking at the trees, enjoy smelling the fresh air, enjoy looking at the beautiful buildings, right? Because you're not going anywhere. None of us are really going anywhere. So it's a wonderful time to slow down and focus on just really what's around us and to be more mindful and be in the moment. Or the way I like to bring more mindfulness into my life also sometimes is just I ask myself this question, what am I doing right now? And how do I know that I'm doing it? How do I know that I'm breathing? I can hear my breath, I can feel my breath, I can taste the air, I can smell the air. How do I know I'm walking right now? I can feel my feet on the ground, I can hear each footstep. I can see that my field of vision is changing as I walk. The smells in the air are different here. The wind, I can feel it and taste it in a different way in this part of the house or the neighborhood. Checking in with our 5 senses and just slowing down and really trying to take this time to maybe not try to get so much done, but just to slow down and enjoy what it is that we're doing. I often share this slide on my other workshops. It says, there's this guy at the coffee shop. He's sitting at a table. He's not on his phone. He's not typing on a laptop. He's just drinking his coffee like a psychopath, right? Now, sadly, none of us are in coffee shops these days, which is one of my favorite places to work. And whenever I'm down in Argentina, I'm always checking out the different cafes and coffee shops and wonderful restaurants and doing writing and things like that. But it is, we can still just, close the laptop, put our phone away, right? Just really enjoy that cup of coffee in the morning, smelling it, tasting it, hearing it, feeling the sensations of the coffee, right? In the morning, or, your wonderful Argentine wines, perhaps in the afternoon, right? Wine tasting is really an act of mindfulness. Can you smell it? Can you think about where the grapes have come from? Can you see the light coming through? What's the texture of the wine, right? All of this, again, this is so much already a part of your culture down there, right? But we can bring this in a little bit more deliberately. And in that way, we're coming through this with a deeper appreciation of ourselves and the world around us and the people around us, and coming out of this more strong, more resilient out the other side, right? And again, not all of us, thank you, Natalia. We can't all slow down because we work from home and the kids are home and we're frustrated. Definitely, absolutely, right? That's kind of where my life is right now, right? But, thinking about this a little bit. And then I think lastly, I'll just encourage everyone to think a little bit about, to remember that this situation will end. Maybe it'll be December 1st. Maybe it'll be next March. Maybe it'll be longer. But it will end. This will pass. And so to spend some time thinking about a few things. For one thing, think about what you want to do when this is over, because that gives us hope. Keep talking to people about what you want to do. Where are you going to go and travel? What's the first meal you're going to eat, right? What's the first place you're going to go? Or what are you going to do, when you do have a babysitter and your kids are, you can go out, or you can have a little bit of time. Keep that hope alive. Plan what it is that you want to do. Even if you don't end up doing it, let yourself indulge in that fantasy, because this makes us feel better. And the research actually shows us that when we plan a vacation, even if we never take it, we're actually happier. And also think about, when things go back to something like normal, who will you have wanted to be? How will you want to remember this time? This time is going to be unforgettable. We will all remember this for the rest of our lives, right? My kids are going to remember this for the rest of their lives. How do I want them to remember it? How do I want them to remember me? How do I want my colleagues to remember me, my family to remember me during this time? Was I the guy that, took the last loaf of bread at the supermarket, or was I the guy that was generous about that and gave it to somebody else, right? Who dropped off groceries for the neighbor, right? Who do I want to be at the end of this? Who do I want to be, and how do I want to be remembered at the end of this too? And what am I doing today that's moving me in that direction? So I'll just leave you with those two challenges for yourself. So again, I want to thank all of you for being here today. I feel so grateful that I've got friends all over the world from my work. And again, like Latin America and Argentina in particular is such a place that's so special to me. And Alan, thank you so much for inviting me to come back and do this workshop. And I hope that I see you in person and all of you in person at some point. But this has actually been really moving for me to be able to connect with all of you from thousands of kilometers away, and to know that all over the world, right, all of us are struggling with these same questions, and we have so much to learn from each other. And I hope we keep learning from each other and building connections, and not building walls. So thank you all just so much. And thank you, Alan, as well, for putting this on, and for doing this every week for people. Like, what a beautiful thing that you're giving people every Saturday to have a chance to connect with each other, connect with themselves, to really start thinking about how to use this time. So thank you. Gracias a todos.
Okay, bueno, thank you, Chris, for giving such a gift to all of us, for being so kind, to spread your knowledge, experience, your wisdom, with so much love to all of us. So it's really it's really a gift for all of us. I'm very happy. And I feel very gifted also to have you here and to be able to offer every Saturday some thoughts, experiences, and knowledge, and lots of things. It's really interesting. So there was a question here, and we have a couple of minutes, 7 minutes to go. One was about, I read it at the beginning, it was a question about, is it needed to have like long time for meditating, or would you suggest to have like small, tiny spaces throughout the day? So is it any specific recommendation or either way?
I mean, really, right now, it's so hard and I think, there's, especially for people with kids, it's impossible to have even 5 minutes to be alone with your own thoughts, except maybe in the shower, right? Although, like, I've got little kids who are like, coming into the shower, when I try to get a few minutes by myself. But, again, if you can do longer, do longer. If you can do shorter and just have 1 minute here and 2 minutes there and 3 breaths here and 5 breaths there, or taking time to just, when you wake up in the morning, noticing 5 different sounds that you can hear out your window, that's going to actually really make a huge difference in your day. If it's just drinking that coffee or sipping that wine for 5 minutes with all of your senses, that's going to make a really huge difference. Because so many of us don't have time to do 20 minutes or an hour. And I think people will really find, actually, if every hour you give yourself 1 minute, or every couple hours you give yourself a couple minutes to just look out the window and notice what's beautiful, or the shades of green, or to listen to the sounds, or to just feel your feet on the ground, or mindfully take your walk, even just for 1 or 2 minutes, that you'll find a really big difference in your day. So I highly recommend doing a few minutes here and there when you can find them. I think you'll discover that really does help. Okay, thank you. And there was a question from I guess Romina, and she said, I'm busy with the kids, my work, when I can stop. And something that I did in several retreats, which is sometimes tough, but it works, is like waking up around 4 a.m. or 5. It's really challenging, but at that time, it's like the world is stopped. So you have maybe 20 minutes for yourself. It's difficult to wake up when you're tired, but this is a time, usually the kids are sleeping, the neighbors are not making noise, the cars are not in the street, and this is very good. Yeah. And there is another question here for Chris and for you. It says, I teach a lot online now, including mindfulness, classes and practices. On Zoom, I am looking out at a sea of bored and distracted faces, negative self-referential thoughts and negative self-critical feelings arise. After a class, I often get notes of appreciation, but it doesn't help me get over that sense of being ignored, disliked, or rejected. People do not act this way when they are present during the real life class. Does this happen to you or to Chris? Any recommendation for a quicker recovery? Okay, you go first, Chris. I know, you go first. No, I'll be honest. When I'm doing these Zoom things, I actually, I find it so distracting to look at people that I end up just like looking either straight at the camera, or I look kind of a little bit further away, because otherwise I feel terrible, because I know that not everybody's paying as much attention. So I think it happens to absolutely all of us. And I think what we really need to do is know that as long as people are tuning in, even if it's just like a few seconds and then they're distracted, and a minute and then they're distracted, or then they wander off, or they come back in, and you can watch the numbers going up and down on the Zoom meditation, down at the bottom. it's still really helpful to people to be doing that. And then to really take some time when you get those emails afterwards, to appreciate those, to read them carefully, to allow those to be what keep you going. And again, that's that negativity bias, right? Our mind, it sticks to the negative rather than to the positive. So really trying as much as we can to focus on the positive. And if people are showing up, even if they're distracted or whatever, you know, they're still really appreciating what you're doing. And also knowing that, you know, people are distracted too, and that's okay. Like, you know, my son came in to get his Legos, and, you know, my daughter's screaming in the background, and it's hard, and other people have to get up and, you know, do dinner or something like that. So mindfulness is not quite the same online and from people's homes as it is from classes in person, but it's still a valuable thing to keep doing. And thank you for continuing to do it despite people being distracted.
Yeah, I may thank you, Chris. I may add to that when it happens to me that I may see somebody that is maybe not paying attention. Actually, I'm not paying too much attention to everybody in a room of 100 people, but instead of thinking that it is against me, it is something that the person is fighting with her or himself. So and I'm just witnessing his or her own challenges.
Right.
And I'm gifted for witnessing, and I'm gifting for still having him or her in the room. So this is another way of looking at that. Bueno, I think we are almost in time. I don't have words to express my appreciation, Chris, to you and to all of the people attending to this Saturdays for Connect. I took that idea of being helpful, and for me was very interesting how you would like to be remembered, or how you like to remember yourself during this time. So this way of offering workshop, something that you can do is offering this Saturday connection workshop to other people every Saturday. Maybe bring a guest, bring a friend, bring a family person, and give them the possibility to joining to this gifted time where we have pearls like Chris sharing with us. So this is a good idea. I just want to tell everybody that hola, yeah, buenos días. That next Saturday we will have an amazing, another amazing, I expect an amazing Saturday, and the topic will be multitasking, family multitasking, and the challenge of sustaining yourself and the others, with Juan Melchiori and Marina Ortolani from the Hospital Italiano Mental Health Department. So I want to have you all, if you want and if you can, to be with us next Saturday. And once again, Chris, my biggest hug, thank, and
Abrazos a todos virtuales.
You have a lot of friends, not only from Argentina, but all from the region. So everybody can disconnect the mics and can say whatever. And this is the open ending for everybody. And thank you, everybody.
Gracias. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Gracias.
Chao. Bye-bye.
Todos. Adiós.
So much. Gracias.
Gracias.
Everything.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Bye.
Alan,
Thank you.
muchísimas gracias. Feliz día.
Thank you, Alan. Bye.
Gracias.
See you soon.
See you
Nos vemos el
soon.
sábado
Hasta
que viene.
pronto.
See you next Saturday.
Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Alan.
Gracias, Alan.
Gracias, Alan, genio, Alan. Gracias. Sos un helper.
Ahí estamos. Espero que tengan un lindo fin de semana.
Igualmente para vos.
Y
Gracias.
bienvenida para esto la cuarentena, ¿no?
Seguro.
Le damos la bienvenida a este ratito que nos regala.
¿María va a tocar?
Analicemos en la corona y no en el virus.
Me quedo por María.
Sobre todo.